everybody. Another episode of Sisto Says. I'm here today with Michael Menotti from Menotti Enterprises, longtime friend. How you doing, Michael?
Excellent. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
Oh, this is awesome. So Mike and I go back a really, really long time. So
32 years.
that's it. Time flies. We're the old curmudgeons, Mike.
That's it.
We were the young guys at the building department running around together and at the school construction authority. And here we are today, 37 years for me, 32 years that we've been friends. And, tell me what you're doing these days. It's exciting. You're here today because of site safety and other things you do. But the viewers are anxious to hear the evolving world of site safety and safety directors and keeping sites across New York City safe.
Yeah, so 8 years ago, we opened up Menotti Enterprise, my son and myself. And I was a senior super for Hunter Roberts at that time. So did a lot of project management and expediting with you a long time.
Yeah.
Code consulting. So it made me who I am today.
Excellent.
We got into the safety realm. We're doing safety training. We're doing safety audits, safety inspections.
Oh, so wait, so hold on a second. So that's really interesting. So it's not just about being on site and making sure the site's safe, the people on the street are safe, the lady with her groceries doesn't get hit with something, right? Making sure that the workers are safe, but also you actually train the workers off-site to receive their cards for their site safety cards or their project, the DOB registration for site safety or directors or whatever they might be. So tell us a little bit about how that works.
So because of the incidents and accidents and deaths in New York City, they keep going up. Unfortunately, the city had implemented all workers to have 40-hour SST cards,
correct,
which is 40 hours of training, which we do all the training in our school in Cypress Hills. They also impose that all foremen and supervisors have to have 62 hours of training SST. So
you can't just become a contractor and go work on a construction site without proper training, which kudos to the building department. As you and I have spoken before, I'm a huge proponent of safety. I think laws, whether they're zoning laws, building department laws, safety laws, they're there to protect the workers. They're there to protect the people that are outside the buildings. It's all around good common practice that should be enforced and will be enforced now. And I think, kudos to the building department for doing that.
Absolutely. So, when we're on a construction site, it's not just about making sure the workers are working safely and what they're going to do for the day that it's done safely.
Right.
It's also making sure the pedestrians and the public are safe.
Exactly.
As they're walking by the construction projects. And it's also about property, right? Adjacent property, adjacent protection.
Of course.
So it's all those different animals that we have to keep an eye on and mitigate. We also, implemented doing pre-task planning, pre-huddles. All the major projects in New York City require pre-huddles in the morning with all the workers to talk about the work that's going to get done for the day.
For that particular day. So no one's surprised that they're lifting, something over their head. They know the schedule. Today we're doing a pour. It's the 8th floor. Right. Well, you guys are going to be working on 6. Well, what are you doing on 6? We're pouring on 8. We're stripping. You're not. Whatever. So that's great communication.
Right. And it's tough because there's still, unfortunately, people taking shortcuts.
Of course. People
don't want to go downstairs, take the elevator down, get the right ladder. So what do? They use a bucket.
Right.
And then they get hurt. So it's tough.
Shout out to my good friend Matt Cotter. He was here, and we did a podcast on insurance. And you and I talked about it before the show today. And the scaffold law is crazy. I mean,
absolutely.
It's regardless of what sector of construction you're in, the insurance rates are astronomically high for most people. Yeah. Actually, a lot of the old timers that are older than me, they closed their shop. They refused to say, look, this is impossible. We we can't compete anymore. We're not in this realm, and the insurances have put them out of business. And a lot of that is because there's so many claims.
Yep, yep. And there's a lot of false claims.
Correct.
Unfortunately, there's something to be said. Years ago, there was probably 10 insurance companies in the city. Now they're down to 3.
Yes, that's what Matt. That's exactly what Matt talked about.
It's bad.
But Matt also said that a big, vital part of keeping your insurance rates is to have a great record when it comes to site safety. People will always get injured. There's no. The construction business it's a tough business. Right. You're working on heights. You're dealing with heavy equipment. Accidents happen. That's why they're called accidents. Right. But the insurance companies are looking for construction companies that have people like you on board that mitigate the chances of things happening. So in reality, a lot of what you do is to help not only abide by the laws that the city's created, but you're also an asset to the contractor or to the owner or to the developer, whoever it might be, to say, hey, look, at the end of the day, we're here for you. If you have no accidents because we do our job well and we stop the guy from getting on the bucket and we remind that guy that, you're only 2 steps up, but you don't have your harness on. Whether you're 2 steps up or you're 30 steps up with a scaffold, it doesn't matter. Right. As long as it's a gravity-related injury, you're liable. So you do play a very active role, not only in protecting your own insurance and keeping your rates down, but having, your employees, which I understand you have over 100 employees. Yep. Congratulations. That's a nice size firm. And part of that is you bring added value not only to the protecting of the people and the construction workers, but at the same time protecting their assets.
And it's fortunate and unfortunate because you have a lot of the big CMs that are safety is paramount, right? And they show it, they breathe
absolutely.
it, they speak it, they sleep.
I've even heard that there's some sites that you actually each sub has to go downstairs, sit in a spot, and everybody has to stretch.
Yep, stretch and flex.
Stretch and flex. And so I asked one of the contractors, I said, is this true? He goes, oh, absolutely. I said, how do you bid that?
Yeah.
He goes, well, we basically tell them if that's part of the plan, and you're going to ask to take my 80 electricians to go on the first floor for a half hour to do, well, it's only 10 minutes. No, it's 10 minutes to get there, 10 minutes for them to do the stretching, 10 minutes for them to get back where they work. You took a half hour out of 80 union men.
That's right. And it's great because the CMs, what they do is they put out the bids, right? They ask everybody back for their numbers. They give them a couple of haircuts, right? And then they give them a last and final. And as they pre-qualify their bid and qualify their bid, they then get them to that place and they say, we're going to give you back a little money back from what we gave you a haircut on. And that's to do stretch and flex.
Wow.
And that's how they get them. And
so tell me a little bit about that. So what are the statistics and the data that tells us that the stretch and flex works?
Right. So it's human beings, we get out of bed, we go to work, your muscles are stiff.
Of course.
So, a lot of the big CMs have done the studies which has shown that basic calisthenics has reduced the amount of strains in your muscles and tears and pulls and lower back and hamstrings by doing a little warm up in the morning.
And get some endorphins flowing, get people in a good mood.
Happy and excited.
Exactly.
And it works.
That's incredible.
It works. When I was with Skanska as a super, it worked. When I was with Hunter Roberts, it worked. I've seen Gil Bain do it. So a lot of the CMs, the big CMs, have adopted it.
And so tell me about you're talking about all the big companies. So tell me about our sweet spot. We do a lot of affordable housing, which you're involved with a lot of our contractors.
Sure.
What's the difference between the Skanskas and the Hunter Roberts and the Turners versus
the mid-size.
The mid-size. When I say
GCs.
mid-size, they're doing a couple $100 million
Sure.
a year. They're not
Sure.
they're not doing $3 million jobs. I mean,
Right.
they're doing 7-story affordable housing.
Right.
A couple of hundred units. So tell me the difference there between the stretch and flex as well as because
Yeah.
I know that a lot of the GCs that we work for are incredibly safe. I go to the job sites, I film there once in a while.
Right.
And, I was on one a couple of weeks ago and I always have my hard hat. And sure enough, I had my hard hat on. I had my boots on and the guy taps me on the shoulder and he says, "Excuse me, are you one of the owners?" I said, "No, I'm just filming my podcast." He says, "Okay, I'm looking for the owner. I'm here from OSHA."
Wow.
So even for me,
Right.
just going to do an Instagram video,
Yep.
I'm on the job site. I gotta play by the rules, and that's the way it should be for everybody.
That's right.
So
that's
tell me
right.
about the mid-sized
So,
firms.
so I think the difference that comes to play is you have the major CMs that are worldwide, right? Skanska's worldwide.
Sure.
Gilbane, Hunter Roberts,
Yeah, Turner.
Turner,
Yeah.
right? It
Suffolk.
has to do with, and then there's the GCs that are non-union,
Right.
right? It has to do with, I think, in my opinion, union force and non-union force.
100%.
Right? The union force, believe it or not, a lot of them have recruited new, younger people, but because of the work industry and the workflow, a lot of the union members are older men and women.
Our age.
Right? Where you notice the mid-sized firms, the GCs that are non-union, it's a lot of younger,
Yeah. It's
middle age.
Right.
right?
They're not the seasoned
Right.
workers that have been around in a union
Right.
for 30
But
years
they
and know what their bosses taught them and their supers taught them. And then they got it and now they're passing it along and now it's gotten even more difficult because they have people like you on site enforcing it.
Right, right. And I noticed that, the non-union younger force is a little bit more agile,
Right.
and a little bit more physical, whereas the union projects that have the mid-age, older folks that have been in the union
Yeah, the
20
workforce
years.
is just a little older.
Yeah, so I noticed that difference on the projects where they're doing stretch and flex with the union, older folks that are more prone to getting, the
Injured.
lower back injury
Right,
and
of
the
course.
muscles, compared to the GCs that are doing, the $200, $300, $400 million worth of work that are non-union.
Right.
So that's the difference that I've seen
Yeah.
between those
And
two.
that makes a lot of sense. So, usually I always ask the question. I like to refer to my previous podcasts, and I always talk about the power of people.
Right.
And it's amazing. See you on LinkedIn all the time, read your stuff, you do a great job. And I'm always interested in new things, cutting edge, and social media gives us the opportunity to see what a Mike Menotti's doing, even though we were together all the time and seeing each other at the SCA for years, day in and day out, and the power of people. So here we are, 30-something years later, and you're an expert in the site safety field. And people like you really are what I call part of the fabric of New York City. I consider myself that just because we've been around and we've done so much and we've been involved in so much, some good, and we believe in what we do.
Right.
Andrew Peters has a great line. He's a cost estimator from Curry and Brown. And he says, too many people are always looking in the rearview mirror saying, oh, that's what happened when we did this. This is what happened when we did that. And he goes, in estimating, you got to look forward.
That's right.
And he says, the rearview mirror, too many people always, on the last job. So I'm going to ask you the question that I'd love to ask all my guests. So, Michael, what do we see going forward? What do you see New York City doing? I know you probably do work outside of New York City, but most of it is, where do you see the new site safety laws going? What do you see that they're proposing to, kind of tell the audience that, they've made steps, like you said, 40 hours if you're on this, 62 hours if you're doing that. Okay, this is all great, but But that's just the beginning,
Right.
right? You know, now where do you see New York City and New York State taking this to the next place?
So what I think and see what's happening based on the new code that's coming out and the requirements for site safety. They looked, and when I say they, the city council and building department have gotten together with the major unions and real estate to look at what is buildable in the next 10 years.
Right.
Right?
Office to residential conversion is the big thing.
They're running out of buildings to demo.
Right.
You know, a lot of them that are left are historical,
Right.
so they can't touch them. So the building department had the
What's
requirement.
the trend of what's
Right.
going to be happening?
Right. The building department had the requirement for years, 10 stories and above, 125 feet,
Right.
100,000 foot lot
Footprint,
area, right?
right.
Footprint requires site
Site
safety
safety
managers,
managers.
right? Now, the next 2024, 2025, they're lowering it to 7 stories.
Right.
Okay. And I think that's to accommodate the trend, what's happening, what's coming.
Because it's
People are building
smaller.
smaller scale,
Right.
lower. You know, the
Well,
interest
because-
rates
well,
went
first
up.
of all, people would build more, but
Right.
they didn't change the zoning. So if you're in
Correct.
Brooklyn, unless you're in one of the special districts, you're pretty much
That's right.
tapped out at 6 or 7 stories for quality housing. So there you are.
Right.
So you're not going to be building those buildings. But if somebody falls from 125 feet or they fall from 75 feet, it's pretty much the same thing. So
That's right.
why would you just stop it there? But that was their thought process. So,
Right.
you know, part of what I like to bring to the viewers is subject matter experts like yourself to not just to tell what the new law is, but explain why it is. And,
Right.
and that's a really great point about where the trend is. We see the same trend. You know, one of the trends we're seeing, obviously, big hot topic is, you know, midtown office buildings that are going to get converted to residential. Now, that's not a new building. From a site safety standpoint, that they're tough. We got a lot of demo. We got a lot of shoring. I mean, we're going to drill cores through the middle of a building and take it out through the lobby.
That's right. And bring in steel.
And then bring in steel to put it back on, right?
right.
So, and then we're going to be opening things. Slabs are going to be rotted. Mechanical spaces that were dripping, you know, condenser water forever. You know, so there's, you know, the whole, not even just from a controlled inspection standpoint, but from a safety standpoint.
Right.
You're talking about different dynamics with
That's
a
right.
different set of skill set for your workers
Right.
and for the contractors.
Right.
It's not a brand new building where we're just pouring concrete and we're running up, right?
That's right.
Now,
That's
now
right.
we may be taking the skin off the building. We may be removing a lot of equipment. We'll be removing floors. So tell us a little bit about what you're hearing about this office to residential conversion.
Yeah, so office to residential and hotels, right? They're converting to residential also for the housing. You know, that's why they're coming in heavy with the tenant protection plans now.
Correct.
And having a registered architect or engineer to do the inspections daily.
Correct.
Okay?
Not just put it on a plan.
No, not like it used to be, right? So, but that's also because we're doing construction in a mixed-use building that has occupants in it.
Of course.
So you're right. It's a whole new animal. It's not just building new buildings.
Right.
It's doing interior renovations, exterior major renovations.
And the tenant protection's a big deal.
Yeah.
You know, and to me, you know, when we used to do it years ago, we did it at the SCA because we had students in the building.
Right.
And regardless whether it was a law or not, you know, our biggest fear, even as an expediter, I would go and I used to get the plans from Skanska and we would show our phasing of construction, where the workers were coming, what they were doing, how they were going. And the SCA did an incredible job with it. You know, I can't really remember where there was major issues at a school where there was, you know, safety problems while kids were going in and out, protecting them, whether it was with bridges, whether it was with, you know, temporary egress, whatever it was.
Right.
So adopting that tenant protection plan now, the thing that I like about it is, again, promoting safety, not only for the workers, but for the people who live there and the people outside, is you can't show it on a plan and then walk away.
That's right.
Somebody's, I hate to say it this way, but either someone's going to be accountable for it, and if something goes wrong, you are accountable.
That's
and
right.
then they want to know why their insurances go up, right?
That's right.
And on the flip side is having a safety director saying, hey, you're not complying with your tenant protection plan is really important.
Absolutely.
Because, again, somebody carrying a 2x4 out the door and they're walking through the corridor that they're not supposed to be in, and
Right.
somebody, a
And-
mother
and-
with their kid comes walking out and gets hit in the head with a 2x4.
Right.
And, people say, well, that doesn't happen. Oh, yeah, it does. It
And
happens
dust,
a lot.
Dust mitigation is
Oh,
the biggest
dust
thing.
is a huge problem.
Right. That's why I think everyone that's going to work in this type of environment should get experience working in a hospital. Because when you're doing construction in a hospital,
100%.
patients are there to get better, not get worse from construction.
And that is, the dynamics of that are enormous. But I'll give you a quick story about an unnamed job site that I went to, which was all great. But I call up the contractor and I said, listen, I'm going to stop at the site. He says, okay. He says, what are you doing? I says, I want to just give like an update on your project. He goes, oh, that's great. And the first thing he said to me, he said, sister, when you get there, just make sure you go see my site safety director. And it was a 10-story building. So I get there, and sure enough, we're there, and the guy is standing there, and he's watching the whole site. He's right at the gate, and he wasn't looking at me. And to me, it was like so great to see, because to me, he loved what he was doing. Like, he wasn't, he wasn't sleeping in his car.
Right.
He wasn't in the office.
Right.
He was standing there as those trucks were rolling up with material, with concrete, with the pump truck going, and making sure. And I could hear him. Hey, you got to get a cap on that rebar right there. Don't go down there yet. Get that cap on there. Hold on. Nobody go down there. And he was a vital part of telling, even though they weren't his workers, but he owned that responsibility.
Yep.
And I think that, to me, that was incredibly impressive.
And it's funny you bring that up because, when we came into the safety industry to carve out a piece for us, our thought was we're going to hire site safety managers that used to be construction supers.
And
That was how
because
we
they
got
know
a
both
lot of the
sides.
work. That's right.
They know how to build versus a person who's just, oh, you can't do that. And the guy's
That's
like,
right.
well, how would you like me to form this out if I can't do this? Okay, well, you can do this as long as you make sure that this is cut properly and the guy digs this out. We put some gravel here, or we do this, and you see him on LinkedIn all the time. Yep. What's wrong with this picture? And people drive around New York City, and there's guys like standing on the craziest things. Like, what are you doing?
Right. Yep.
And is a piece of 4-inch pipe worth your life?
Right. People are still taking chances.
Crazy.
It's crazy. We turn our back. I corrected somebody on a job site the other day. I turned my back. I come back 5 minutes later. He's doing what I told him not to do.
Yeah,
and they don't get it.
And my old boss, 43 years ago, before I started design, once said to me that work is easy, people are difficult. And being a site safety manager is, unfortunately, you have to be that guy. You got to be the guy who's going to be the nag, the guy that everybody's going to say, really?
Right.
I've been doing this 30 years. We don't care if you were doing it 3 minutes ago.
That's right.
This is our job site. We own it. We get paid to make sure it stays safe. Right. And most of all, the part that gets me is that they don't realize that you're there to protect them.
That's right. So that they could go home.
So they could go home to their wife and their kids.
That's right.
Or she can go home to her husband and her children.
Right.
And like I said, a lot of the accidents that we hear about on our job sites happen outside the property line. And you're gonna say, well, how could that be? It's a construction site. Wouldn't you think that? No, it's the guy carrying the material in. Today, this morning, across the street, they're delivering
marble.
Tile,
yeah,
right? They're doing tile or marble this morning, but I saw the tile.
It was tilted on the lift
Right.
gate.
It's tilted on the lift gate. People are walking by. My car's coming in. No flagman, no nothing. I mean, not that they were doing anything illegal, because they weren't.
But there's the potential.
But there's always the potential. So, everything requires attention.
That's right.
And to me, they probably, a lot of people say that we pay way too much to have a site safety manager on site. It costs a lot of money, and everybody's trying to find a way.
Yeah.
But in reality, it should be the other way around.
Absolutely.
That we don't pay them enough, like teachers. We
that's
just don't
right.
give them enough.
That's right. And you know what happens, like I was telling you before, the big CM firms, it's priority on their list, safety. A lot of other firms will last to get paid, last to be a thought. But
Sounds like expedited.
when the lawsuit happens, we're first.
Right.
We're first.
Right. You take on a lot of liability.
A lot. Way too much.
Right.
But it's perfect, what you spoke about, that the person that's on the job, that's responsible and that's concerned. I saw something provocative the other day where you walked into a job site and they had a mirror, and on the frame it says, "Who's in charge of safety?" And everybody was going in to look at it. And it's a mirror.
Right. You.
You're in
Right.
charge of safety.
Everybody's accountable.
See something, say something.
Right.
So that was provocative, but it always works because, like you said before, there's the workers that are just started in the industry, then there's the workers that have been doing it 30 years. Those are the two that have the biggest liability,
Right.
because you want to be the one in the middle.
Right.
The one who just came in wants to impress everybody.
Right.
The one who's been doing it 30 years
been
for
doing
my eyes closed, right? And they get hurt.
Right.
So we tell everybody, we preach in training, you want to be in the middle. You want to think before you do. You don't want to walk backwards. You want to walk sideways.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that we preach. And
So other than them changing some of the laws, tell me a little bit about, I see different kinds of scaffolding that they're using with the netting on it now. I know they've changed the sidewalk bridges. We've had a whole discussion about that. We're going to talk about that in one of our upcoming podcasts.
I'll watch that one.
Because of the opening, you could do these special bridges. You could, no more solid all the way around. I'm assuming that they wanted open so that they could see
the
that
wind.
people, the
the
wind,
wind
people
blows
were
through.
loading. They were loading them with materials that they
That's
shouldn't
right.
have had.
That's right.
And again, who's below it?
Right.
Who's below it?
Yeah.
Who's below it is the
public.
pedestrians, is the public.
Yeah.
So
your mother
again,
and father, your
Exactly.
grandfather, your aunt, your sister.
and
Anybody.
your nephew or your niece, your
That's right.
grandchild. So
right.
at the end of the day, all of these laws are put in place to protect the people. So tell me something else that the city is trying to do besides the height, lower the restriction, the tenant protection plan. What's going on outside the site?
Outside the site, they're looking at other areas from Europe, right? Because it always seems that Europe's ahead of us.
I was just
everything.
in France again. Their scaffolding is beautiful.
Right.
Beautiful. It doesn't even look like a
It's
scaffold.
artwork and safety.
Yeah, then you go to Italy and it looks like they're still using the primitive 2x10s that are with a
That's
piece
right.
of rope on them.
That's right.
In some of the small towns. So, but you're right. Germany, Switzerland, a lot of those countries have some state of the art scaffolding and bridging that's just absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, they're looking at fall protection stuff that, not just aircraft cable that we use. They have, railings, prefabricated railings with counterweights that are on them on the ground. So, a human being can't even move it. You got to use a machine to move the weights.
Wow.
Which is good. The other thing that was big, unfortunately, the two deaths that happened at JFK. With the excavation and the support of excavation.
Right, the
I met with a British company to bring in some protection for underground for shoring that I thought was really phenomenal. And, we're going to look at bringing it over to JFK and
Beautiful.
and doing demonstration and see if we could get the Scalamandries of the world and all the big civil companies to get into it, because it's something that can be assembled quickly and lowered into the hole, so that it protects the worker going in there.
Like they use those big steel ones when they're doing
Correct.
the streets.
Or the wood ones that a PE or an RA didn't sign the drawing, and then you find that after why it collapsed.
Correct.
So
well, we did it this way last time.
Right.
We just
Exactly.
talked about that.
Yeah.
So definitely, there seems to be a trend with working in the ground. There's no doubt about that. There's definitely a trend of working,
Above.
high above, and then there's everything else in between.
That's right.
Everything else in between. So as we go forward into the site safety world, one of the things that we have a repetitive conversation about is how do you get young people into the site safety world?
Right.
So what is Menotti Enterprise? Where do they go and try to find young people? Where do they recruit them? How do they educate them? And how do they convince them that it's a good life to do this and earn a living for your family, and yet have pride to do something to protect other people?
That's
'Cause
right.
to me, I look at it as a job that you're kind of like a construction policeman.
Yeah, and you look at the end of the day, how many people you saved today,
Correct.
right? I post that on LinkedIn. Save this person today.
Right.
I told somebody how to tie off. I walked away. I come back. They tied to something else. I stopped them. I got everybody involved, and they corrected it. So I look at it as a save. Right.
Absolutely.
It's fortunate that we have a training building department, OSHA approved, ICIT accredited school. We do a lot of work with nonprofits.
Yeah, and so one thing I want to touch upon that I have a lot of respect for is our armed forces.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you. 20 years civil engineer.
That's amazing. So God bless you. And I also know that you're a minority-based firm. So tell us a little bit about that.
So we're veteran disabled owned, because I'm 30% disabled from the military. So we have veteran disabled owned, minority business owned, and disadvantaged. The MTA loves us, TBTA, because they get 3 credits when they use us on a project. We bring in and recruit a lot of individuals from the communities.
Awesome.
We train them. We give them all the hours they need and real on-the-job training.
Right.
We introduce them to what's going on in the industry, and then we offer them the top 1% out of the class. We offer a job.
Oh, that's great.
In the
So not
summer-
only do you train them, but then as you're training them,
Yeah, we bring them.
The people that really enjoy it and they have a liking to it and excel at it, you give them the opportunity to get a job.
Correct.
That's awesome.
Correct. And in the military, I was also a unit career advisor. So all the young troops that would come in, we would give them a path of their education and training and their promotions.
Wow.
And so we do the same thing in our training school.
That's great.
We tell the workers, this is where you can start. These are the options you have with the training you
awesome.
have. This is the money you can potentially make. We can help you
So
on
they
how to
see the
interview.
direction. They can
Yes.
see a path.
Yep.
That's awesome.
So we've had a couple of folks that have been with us 6 years that started from nothing
Right.
to being now a licensed site safety
It's
manager and a
amazing.
super.
You gave them a
And-
path.
Yep.
So before we end the show, Michael, first of all, I always want to say thank you, but I want you to spend a few minutes to tell us about your Windmill training site in Staten Island, because I've been waiting the whole show for you to talk
That's
about it
great.
for a few minutes
That's great.
before we end it. I was very impressed when I saw it on LinkedIn. I actually watched a lot of it. I've been reading up about it, but I want to hear it from your perspective about, the whole solar out in the ocean on a barge, and guys will be working. So tell us, a couple of seconds about it.
So 2 years ago, we partnered up with, I brought in an offshore wind contractor that's in the city, and an engineering firm that does diving in the water for underground. And I said, we're going for an RFP with New York City Economic Development Corp. To provide offshore wind training. So we sent our folks over to Norway.
Wow.
We got them trained up.
That's
We
great.
we partnered with a Norwegian company who's been doing global wind offshore training. And we brought everything over here. We brought a barge together in Staten Island. Went to the borough president. He opened his arms
That's great.
to welcome us in D'Onofrio's boatyard, and we have a training facility there. We were able to see ahead the trend that the United States was going in.
Sure.
Offshore wind power,
Yeah.
windmill.
We're getting some RFPs for that power to come to the warehouses.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And so
Oh, that's awesome.
we
So
said,
I'm going to make
yeah.
a point to
Yeah,
come out
absolutely.
and do a short reel on it.
we got a harness for you.
All
Ready?
right, great. I hope it's short.
Nah, we'll adjust it.
Well, Michael, thank you so much.
Thank
It's
you,
been
brother.
a pleasure.
Yep.
Anybody needs site safety managers, site safety consulting, reach out to Mike Menotti of
Thank you,
Menotti
brother.
Enterprises. Pleasure,
Thank you, brother.
Michael.
Pleasure. Let me know when you need us back, okay?
I will.